Hey Spartans, let's talk about literature circles. This is going to be an introduction and establishing what will be normal for our time in literature circles. The first thing that you need to know is that they're similar to book clubs. Your groups are going to get together, sometimes you'll read together, but you'll always discuss together. You're not doing a whole class novel reading. Not everyone in the class will be reading the same book as you, and you won't be able to only read in class. You'll have to do some reading outside of class. That's kind of the biggest difference right there. Also, the way that your book club works or your literature circle works is going to be a little bit independent of me as your teacher. I'm not just going to lecture and have you fill out worksheets. I'm not just going to lecture and have you write me an essay. You're going to meet together in groups and talk about what you've read. You still have to read the whole book, however, just because you're not going to write an essay or take a test or listen to me lecture about it, you'll still have to do some thinking of your own and discussing it. And all of that thinking and discussing will have to be based off of a reading of the book. You can't just show up and agree with what everybody else is saying. That's not going to work, okay? So here are the logistics of what's going to happen. You're going to be given a set of books to choose from, and you're going to rank your choices. You'll be like, this is the one I want the very most, number 1. This is the one I want the second most, number 2. And this is the one I want the third. And you'll probably get one of those 3 choices. If you're not going to get one of your 3 choices for whatever reason, I'll talk to you about it in advance, okay? But most, if not everybody, will get one of their top 3 choices. I'm going to organize the groups. So just because you said this is the one you want the most, that doesn't mean that's the one you're going to get. There are other things that as your teacher I need to take into consideration, okay? So you'll rank your book choices and I will organize your groups. Once your group is organized, you will meet together to determine your reading schedule. I'll tell you exactly how many classes you have to meet and when the book needs to be finished by. And you will decide as a group how much you're going to read for each time that you meet. What will be assigned, what's due, how much reading will you have to complete by the class on the paper, okay? Then you're going to learn some reading strategies at the computer station. Probably they won't be totally new information to you, they'll probably be review, but you'll get to decide which reading strategies you're using when, but you do need to use them, and you'll record them. You're going to read with your group at the reading station and outside of class. So there will be 20 minutes every class where you can read together as a group, but you can't read what's due that day. You might not start at that station. So you'll be reading ahead or rereading to prepare for your discussion. And then of course you'll discuss with your group at the group station. That's where I'll be going around and grading your discussion, looking for the things that you've used in the reading strategies, the inferences you're going to make, your ability to summarize, your understanding of the narrative elements, all the stuff that we grade on in standards-based grading in terms of your skills and the standards. So you're not turning in a final essay or a final project. Your ability to discuss what you've read in the book is what's being graded, which is why it's so important that you come prepared according to the schedule that your circle sets. So here are a couple things about how the discussion is going to work. This is what will be normal and expected as part of the discussions. Everyone participates in the discussion every time. You'll have to make comments, you'll have to ask questions and contribute. You can't just show up and listen. You need to come prepared with 3 contributions. You can have more than that, but at least 3 things that you are ready to contribute to the discussion. They can be questions, they can be predictions, they can be vocabulary words that you found that you liked and defined. One of them can be something that you visualize. It's all those reading strategies that you're being talked about or that you're being taught at the computer station you can use to prepare for the discussion, but you need at least 3 things ready to discuss. You'll track the reading strategies you're using on your strategies trackers, and I'll show you how to do that in class. But what that means is that you can't just show up to discussions with visualizations all the time and neglect all the other strategies. You'll have to use each one at least once. Follow the assignment instructions to record your discussion contributions and notes. So you're going to have whatever you have prepared to discuss, and then during the discussion you're also going to be making notes and filling out the assignment on the discussion that tracks the contributions, the interruptions, and anything new that you've learned. Speaking of interruptions, One of the things that we will expect in our discussion circles is that nobody interrupts. Nobody's in charge, and I'm not there, calling on people who raise their hands. So you'll have to actively listen and look for cues in body language and facial expression and tone to know when is a good point for you to begin speaking and when it's time for you to conclude speaking and who's going to speak next. It's a very natural, although thoughtful and polite turn-taking structure. Okay, you're going to discuss together. Nobody's going to be in charge and dominate, and everyone has to participate. So it'll be important that you don't interrupt other people. Here are some examples of how you can contribute to the conversation happening in your literature circle. You always want to refer to other students by name. This is just good discussion habits, not just academically, but in real life. So wherever it says name on here, you're going to see that we're going to call students by name. And we want to connect what we're about to say with what's already been said. So you could say things like, in agreement with what so-and-so said, I want to add, or I have a different thought than what so-and-so said on that topic. And of course you would go on. That's what those dots are there for on the slide. So you could say, I have a different thought than what Jessica said on the topic of our main character's fears. And then I would go and explain what my different thought is. You could say, there's a part of the book that relates to what so-and-so said on page, and then you would take us to the page and cite that evidence. And that would be a really wonderful contribution to the discussion. If something hasn't come up that you are prepared to discuss, you want to make sure that that you've considered connecting it to the previous conversation. Maybe it relates to something that's already been said. But if it's time to change the topic and introduce something new, because we've exhausted talking about the topic at hand, you could say, we haven't considered though. So if we look at, take us to the text to bring up that new topic of conversation. Or you could say, I'd like to direct our attention toward the idea of fear as represented in this character. As always, if you have any questions, please review this material to see if you may have missed the information. And then if you review it and you still have a question, please ask me in class. Thank you so much, and we'll have a great time in literature circles.